May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be always acceptable unto you, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Please be seated. We are gathered in this house of cedar around fire. And in this, we are doing what people throughout the ages have done in winter. We have gathered in families around fire in the winter and told stories. You know, if you think about agrarian peoples, winter, the crops have been harvested. There isn't a lot to do outside. The weather outside is frightful. Winter is the time for spinning the wool that you shorn in the spring into yarn and weaving it into cloth. It's the time for carving, making furniture, mending fishing nets. Hunter and gatherers also. There aren't berries to gather. The acorns have fallen and been gathered. It's a time for gathering, making arrowheads, telling stories. And what are the stories that families tell? Aren't they stories of long ago? The stories of the origins of their family. Maybe Mary and Joseph, when they gathered with family in Bethlehem because they were of the house and lineage of David, maybe they told stories of King David. We gather as part of the family of Jesus. I remember when I was doing an internship, it happened that Christmas that year fell on a Sunday, which you would think, yes, it's Sunday. We have church on Sunday. It's Christmas. We have church on Christmas. The church I was serving in, we actually got on the news because we were having a service on Christmas Day. Because many of the large churches in town chose not to have a service that Sunday because they said it's Christmas, people want to spend it with their families. And we said, well, we are a family. This is the church family. Theologians and seminary professors often don't like the words of church family because they think it sounds like we're just talking about the small group of people gathered in our little building. But that's not what it means. Listen to the collect for today. Collect says, grant that we who have been born again and made your children by adoption and grace. The early church called Jesus the second Adam because as all humans, they believed, are descended from Adam, the family of Jesus is also descended from Jesus. We are adopted by sacraments of baptism, renewed in that adoption by the sacrament of Holy Communion. Some peoples, I understand, have a ceremony of adopting a new relative into the family by each person cutting a slit in their arms and pressing them together so the blood is mingled. And is that not what Jesus did when he told his disciples, take, eat, this is my body, which is given for you. Drink, this is my blood. The bodies and blood symbolically, spiritually mingled from Jesus's body to ours. So in a way, when we tell the story of Jesus's birth, we're telling our ancestors' story. We're telling about the events that make us a family that is not just those few of us gathered here today or those larger numbers gathered last night, but a family that includes people that we don't know at all. People who don't look like us, people who don't speak the same language. All across the world, Christians gather to hear the story of Jesus' birth. They're gathering in the church in Okinawa that my friend Mother Tanabe leads. They're gathering in the Philippines, hearing the good news, the gospel in Tagalog. They're gathering in large cathedrals in England and small churches in Navajo land. All across the world, pieces of Jesus's family are gathering around fire to hear the story of his birth, of how over 2,000 years ago, a young family, a young couple, a Jewish couple descended from David, found themselves having to go to another city, another town, to give birth because an emperor they had never met and had no control over decided that they would do so. How they traveled to the family house, which was crowded, where we are told there was no room in the word that we in English mistranslate to inn, probably meant, the area where guests were normally housed. And so Mary gave birth in the stable, which actually might just have been an end of the house with a manger, the end of the house where the animals lived. And maybe the manger was where babies normally were born. We don't know. Our understanding of this story is shaped by our culture, by our traditions, by the Christmas carols and hymns that we know that cite it in Northern Europe with snow. But across the centuries, across the miles, from in one language or another, this is the story of the beginning of our family, the story of the beginning of the family of Jesus and the covenant that Jesus forged for us with God the Father, of the covenant of love. Jesus did not, as far as we know, have any biological children, but we are all his children. And like any parent, his prayer for us was that we would love one another as he loved us. So remember, you have a biological family. It may be small, it may be big, it may be close, it may be distant, but you also have your family of faith. you have the family created by Jesus, in which you are all brothers and sisters of one another and of people that you have not yet met and never will meet. A family created not by DNA, but by love, by sacraments, by Jesus and his relationship with God and his relationship with us.